Thank you guys. Welcome to my session. So today I'm going to talk about double fetch at the double tap at the black box. I can call twice remotely with man in the middle. I'm Jie from 360 Vulnerability Research Institute, and I'm specialized in connected vehicle security. I'm also a Fortran exploiter of BlackBerry QNX system, which is the most popular automotive operating system. And I'm recently active in both industry and academia. And my co-speaker, Xingfen Chen, is here, and he is specialized in mobile security. He's skilled at customizing AOSP to bypass application protections. So let's come to the prologue. It is 3 years ago, 2021, autumn in Chengdu. There are two remarkable events happened there. The first was a review meeting for China's GB 44495, an automotive cybersecurity standard. And the second was the Tianfu Cup. It is Chinese version of Pong to Own. Many researchers just participate in the Tianfu Cup to demonstrate their vulnerabilities. Now here's what connects them. During a lunch break, at the stand-up meeting as professionals queued up there waiting for the buffet, I overheard a conversation. A tier 1 supplier leaned toward an OEM cybersecurity leader. He said, "I heard your vehicles were compromised and will be featured at Tianfu Cup." The OEM executive just told him, probably just some minor bugs, and we will apply a quick patch to fix it. I happened to standing right behind them, quickly savoring every word. You see, we were exactly the team going to demonstrate their vulnerabilities at the competition Tianfu Cup, while the OEM's PR team finally blocked our presentation. It's unfortunate. Let's turn the clock back to 15 days before Tianfu Cup registration. We were told there is an automotive track, and we need to pick a top 10 brand in China so that it has enough impact. Finally, we choose a brand with over 90,000 units sold in 2021. And however, there are only 15 days left, but we still have zero knowledge about the target. We don't have any hardware of it. We don't have a car. We don't even download its app from the App Store. So we need to find some extremely easy approaches to pwn it. So let's first review the car hacking landscape now. In recent years, there are some automotive tracks in Pong to Own, and the most well-known team is the France team, Dissecting. They just triple pwn Tesla at the event. Until today, only few researchers can follow their work due to the extremely high technical bar. As far as I know, at the first time they got the root privilege of the Tesla infotainment, they kept the root shell even after the latest patches released. So this brings them nature advantages. They don't have to bypass the hardware mitigations to get the latest firmware, so it is much easier for them to start reverse engineering. Dissecting is absolutely doing a great job, but Tesla only takes like 5% to 10% market share worldwide. But what about the rest 90%? So is there some easy way we can pound them in a short time, even the big car manufacturers? So if we want to study about so many cars, we have to consider the budget we have. So we have to save the researcher's wallet. There are some ways can make the research more affordable, like purchasing some car parts. And the picture shows the biggest second-hand car components market in China. Maybe it is the globally largest. You can find almost every category of car parts here. And you can, after buying that, you can disassemble them, disassemble the chips, and dumping the firmware and start your reverse engineering. But it will still cost you like $100 to $2,000 to buy an infotainment, and there is no guarantee you can boot it up. And the sources of the components vary. Like they have some development version. Some of them may directly give you debug ports, and there are factory versions. Sometimes, in most cases, they are brand new, but they are defective because in the production lines there are some defective parts. They are not properly destroyed, and some workers just take them out to sell, and on the market you can get them. And there are also some disassembled version, sometimes from the crashed cars, but it will sometimes cost you to wait for like a year after the car release. So you cannot make sure you can get the latest version. Another way is to rent a car. It is also much affordable than directly purchasing a car, and you can pick it up and return it flexible. Like you can first pick it up and get some firmware from it and return it. After analyzing it, you want to exploit it and you rent it again. But it still has some disadvantages. Like you cannot just disassemble it if you do not have enough confidence to put it back. You know, if you just destroy it, they will charge you a lot. Why don't you just buy a new car? The hardware or software version cannot either be assured, because like Tesla Model 3, they have 2019 version or 2024 versions, and they have completely different hardware and software versions. In our case, we chose this method, that is, we rent a car. Okay, we start the first exploit. The first exploit comes from the first man in the middle. It is an app in the App Store. It is updating with HTTP. There is no SSL, no TLS. And for the rest of the apps, all the traffics are encrypted with SSL or TLS. So we can hijack the updated traffic and change the app to a remote shell. But in this case, we still only have a low privilege. But luckily, we have all the accesses to these applications, so we can download them to our PC and start reverse engineering. Luckily, when we are doing the RE work, we find some interesting strings in the APK. It is saying factory. Factory is a very interesting feature in the system. Sometimes it can help you to start debugging, start some like ADB features. But which programs invokes it? If we look at this code logic, we can see there is a BT phone main activity. It is Bluetooth phone, and after we trigger this function, we can see it on the screen. This is a Bluetooth phone, and you can press numbers on it. Okay, let's verify if our assumption is correct. The first is, let's look at this logic here. It is saying the input length should be larger than 4, and it should start with star sharp and ends with sharp star. Okay, it seems quite right. Yeah. So let's have a closer look at it. And luckily, we found some more hints from the program logic. We can see there are many strings hint us the functions like factory mode, and the testing functions like it can help you to test 4G, USB camera, beacon, and so on. And there are also some strings that hint you can turn on the features that show the operating system version, hardware version. And after we try them one by one, we find there, after importing this string, 9925 and 111, we can trigger the operating system version function directly on the screen. And we can read it, we can scan the QR code, but there is no interactive or any like ADB feature on it. So we kept trying the input, and we found there is a string hint us. We can trigger system settings by pressing 9387141, but after pressing it, nothing happened. What's wrong with it? Maybe there is a authentication. So we keep going through the logic of the program. And luckily, we found the logic. It is saying that it is really doing a comparison. It is saying there is a factory code and there is a secret code. And we kept following the logic. We can see there is a string2 equals a2 import check. It hints us that we are now at the logic of comparing your input with some encoded string. After following the logic, we can go to this function. It is very similar to an encryption, but it's simply just doing some addition and multiplication based on some unique device ID, some hardware versions. But we all know that if you want to implement a good encryption algorithm, you have to do many operations like exclusive or shifts and etc. But here, it is just multiplication and addition. So it's not even the crypto implementation, but we can we can just crack it in no time. In our case, the code is shown here. So after pressing it, we did get into the factory code in the factory mode. In factory mode, we can see there are some console service like turning on the ADB and some log services and copying the logs into USB devices and reboot. However, even if we have ADB open, let's recall in previous steps, it is a low privilege of an app, but now we still have a low privilege. Although it is a little bit higher than app, but it's just 2,000. It's not enough. We still need to escalate our privilege to control the car, because control the car always asks you to be at root privilege. So how can we do to escalate our privilege? Since the kernel is quite old, so we found that CVE 2015-1805 can work, but it needs an offset. And we we invest more about the kernel. We also found that dirty cow works, but dirty cow is a arbitrary file write. But we all know in the vehicle systems, if you want to do arbitrary file write, you cannot directly get a root shell. So let's take a closer look about the exploit. So the first, let's take a quick look about the CVE 2015 and 1805. It is caused in pipe read, and it invokes pipe IOV copy to user. And in this logic, it copies some buffers to the IOV. And there is an arrow processing of it. It will first check if all IOV base are writable. If it is all writable, it will start writing into the IOV. And if there is an error happens, it will reduce the whole procedure. We can see the check and the use of it are all invoked, are all pointing to a user space memory. And if you want to infer to a user pointer twice in the kernel, it is a TOC/TOU, tocto, time of check to time of use. So to exploit this vulnerability, you can first set all the memory address of IOV the base are writable. But when you are going to write into it, you can set some part of it unwritable. And in this case, if it encounters an unwritable address, it will go back to the initial procedure. However, the pointer to the IOV base has moved to the next one, but it still writes the same length. It means you can overflow the memory to write to arbitrary address, because IOV base can be any address. There is no such sanity check of it. However, we don't have a kernel offset, as we said. We just ran a car. We don't want to disassemble it. We don't have any root shell of it, so we cannot get the kernel offset by reading the kernel symbols, right? So we cannot root it. Okay, but what about the dirty cow? In dirty cow we can do arbitrary write to any file, but can we just substitute a write to a file that is running in like system privilege or root privilege? Let's see. Actually, in the infotainment environment, it is really limited, because you can just trigger the applications that is shown on the screen, like the Google Maps, like the Bluetooth phone. You can press them, but they are all running in low privilege shell. They are all running in low privilege, and if you just write to them, you cannot get system shell. And if you want to write to a system privilege binary, you cannot invoke it. So we stuck here. And if you want to write to some binary files that start at the system boot, we all know the vehicle systems are read-only. So when you write to them and you boot them up, they will be the same, and you cannot get the root shell. Okay, let's recall what we have. It seems that we got a factory mode by doing some reverse engineering work. We can see maybe some hidden functions. There are some hidden functions we can trigger in it. And luckily, the log function is running with system privilege. It means we can use dirty cow to change the binary file of the log into our shell. So we can use dirty cow to get to the system privilege. So after we get system privilege, we can read the kernel offset by reading the kernel symbols. Afterwards, when we are going to exploit pipe read vulnerabilities, we can directly use it as to get the root shell. So the remote exploit chain will be like this. First, we leverage a man in the middle in the App Store, and we get a low privilege shell, and we know the system offset of it. Afterwards, we can directly exploit pipe read to get to the root privilege. Then we can start writing the car control logic by doing some more reverse engineering work, and it is quite easy here. It leverages the Android binder feature to send some car control commands to the BCM, and you can just program the CAN messages with Python and send it to the with Java, and you can send it into the system. And let's see the demo of it. Now the car is locked, and it is not booted up. It is an interesting feature because we hijack the traffic with Wi-Fi, and when the car is not booted up, the Wi-Fi is still on. Afterwards, we send the exploit, and now we can turn the door on. Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's get to the second man in the middle of it. It is still the same car manufacturer. Even if the first vulnerability of the updating traffic is secured by HTTPS, Is it really secure? And we all know HTTPS secures traffic by the CIA attributes. And is it truly immune to man-in-the-middle attacks? So let's recall how SSL validated. First, it verifies the root certificate, and it uses public key to verify signatures and root certificate to ensure the trust. But there are still some risks of the private key leaks, like if the CA does not securely stores all the keys, and some CAs they just abuse your keys, and you can get some more information about the CA files from the sslmate.com, and let's see what are the flaws of implementation of the apps of the car control will occur in our real world implementation. There are 4 common cases. The first is about the WebView client override, and when it is going to implement unreceive SSL error calls procedure, it sometimes ignores certificate errors, so you can just substitute the certificate. And the second one is custom host name verifier. It lacks strict certificate validation in verify. And the third is set hostname verifier method. And in our case, it is the fourth. It is the custom X509 trust manager, and it will fails to verify certificate trust in check server trusted. It is a OK HTTP function. And in our case, the potential for in our case, the implementation error comes here. There are actually 2. The first one is the trust anchor of it. It not only trusts the certificates in system. In system, it stores the certificates signed by the manufacturer, but it also trusts those from the users. It means you can just self-sign some certificates and put it in the traffic at somewhere, so you can hijack the traffic by your own private key. And the second error is in, as I said, the check server trusted function. In this function, you have to put the parts of your own certificate, your signed by manufacturer certificate here, so that you only trust them, but it does not implement it. So we can hijack the HTTPS traffic. So let's see the diagram. In normal world, the victim just sends the SYN message to the cloud server, and the cloud server do some response to it, and afterwards, cloud server will send a server hello and send the certificate to the client. But in our case, we know that every certificate is trusted. So when we are going to be the man in the middle by some attacks, we can in this procedure, when the server is going to distribute the certificate to the client, it will trust all, so that you can decrypt all the traffic from the cloud. So yeah, it demonstrates that if we are in the same network, if we use ERP spoofing, we can let the client to trust our certificate, and we can decrypt all the traffic of it. After we get all the traffic of it, we analyze the structure of the control command. For this car manufacturer, the command for car control are really simple. The message ID is a random message ID, and the target ID is a car's VIN number, and we find that there are actually 4 valid values keys in the request. It is service type, message type, command type, and command value. If you set like in this way, you can open the windows, and if you set in the second way, you can open the track. It is same to intercept the MQTT as HTTPS traffic. So let's see the demo, and this can happen from you can send the exploit from remotely. After sending the exploit, you can turn the light on, turn the windows on, and then the track opens. Yeah, that's the second exploit. Okay, let's see the security response from the manufacturer. The first model released in 2018, and when we discovered the first vulnerability, it is September 2021, and it is fixed in early 2022. We don't know the exact time they release the patch, because they didn't ask us what is your vulnerability, but they just fix it. So we don't have the exact date. And after 2023, maybe the car model just discontinued. And for Model B and Model C, they are not affected by vulnerability. The first vulnerability, but the second one affect both of them, and the vulnerability is fixed in December. It is discovered in October 2024 and fixed in January 2025. And we can see the life cycle of these vulnerabilities are really long compared to like iOS or Android or Windows. And there are some patches. We also see some security mitigations happen after our discovery. Like they did some enhancement about the factory mode encryption, but they just add an AES algorithm to it. But all the procedures and private keys are stored in the system, and we know if we want to implement a secure AES algorithm, it is better to use a white box AES. And afterwards, we also we successfully reverse engineering encryption and and turn on the factory mode. But actually, after the first vulnerability is discovered, they add some authentication to turn on the ADB by the public verifying the public key. Next is about our future work. We all know to exploit car is expensive, and we don't have enough cars to evaluate the landscape of man-in-the-middle vulnerabilities. So we really want core for community to contribute. And current procedures are still too complicated for those who have only very basic programming knowledge. And we are going to open source a tool for the security community to find man-in-the-middle vulnerabilities on your own. And we are going to implement all these procedures into one tool. So after you log into your own car account, you can use our tool to decrypt the traffic and replay it or analyze it, so that you can see if your own car is affected by man-in-the-middle attack. And in the end, I want to send a special acknowledgement to Gorgeous Lee, who contributed a lot to our project. And that's all. Thank you. Any question?